Therefore, those who are anxious to gain happiness and increase of heart with Dhamma as their rest and support must think well about themselves and look on greed with apprehension as being a great destroyer. They must also be strict, unyielding, and firm with that which is always waiting for a chance to destroy the Dhamma which is within their hearts, and they must never be easy and give way to it, letting it take charge of them, for it can lead to their death, even while they are still living. Chapter 11. The Nature of Greed, and Fighting Pain and Kilesas. The baneful nature of greed. If one is forgetful and careless of oneself, and welcomes greed, lopha, without inhibition, it will be like an animal which lays in wait to destroy the world, for it has never done any good to anyone. Like a disease which is much feared by the world, and is very difficult to treat and cure if it has once got a hold of anyone. It is a type of disease in which those people who have got it can give up all hope of ever curing it while they are still alive. All they can do is to wait for the day when they reach the end of this life and die. Whatever else the world wants, apart from wealth, there is no hope of getting it from this disease. Therefore, those who hope to get what is truly valuable as an insurance so that they may live in safety, free from dangers, at ease and relaxed both now and in the future, should begin to think and consider this matter deeply, so as to see how evil greed is. For it is full of evil throughout, worse than a bomb which explodes and spreads destruction all about. Because when a bomb goes off, it makes plenty of noise and disturbance, and it displays its power so that everyone knows about it. And they are afraid, and hurry and find shelter as fast as they can to allay their fear and save themselves. But greed does not display itself in this way. Rather, it tends to set up subtle traps deep in the hearts of people of all races, colors, and nationalities. It is even there in the Sangha, from the Samaneras up to the Mahatairas, and in the lay followers as well, for it is not in the least ashamed of getting in where it can. For if their hearts are low and base enough for it to take hold of them, it is bound to force its way in and immediately turn them into its means of satisfaction, its servants. Then it sets up a production unit in their hearts, forcing those who are strong-willed and resolute to go into training until they are experienced and skillful, after which they are made to go out to work, to think and search out all sorts of ways to make money and become wealthy. It matters not whether they get it by right or wrong, crooked, and illegal ways. All that matters is that it satisfies the boss, greed, who sets his expectations of rewards so high that the heart which has a normal awareness of good and evil, right and wrong, such as people have everywhere, feels that it cannot go against it and reduce its expectations. Then the boss passes on the responsibility for doing this to its most favored servant, the heart, which does the work of thinking out how to do it, and passing on instructions to the body and speech faculties to go about acting and searching for profit. Each one does this in his own way and direction, both near and far, inwardly and outwardly, over water and land, by day and by night, whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down all the time, the only exception being when they go to sleep. We can see them in various places, where they congregate together in large numbers, both raking in the wealth, as well as bringing suffering down upon others, without any concern for who they might be. They are not afraid to think, speak, and act both openly and in secret, without feeling the least bit ashamed or afraid that anyone may blame or criticize them. Nor are they afraid of other people's hatred, resentment, and anger. All they want is to profit by following the teaching of the Great Powerful One, which is Lo Po Dhamma Nang Baribanto, and this is the refuge which makes them feel satisfied. As far as safeguarding what they have gained so that it does not leak out and slip far away from their grasp, Master Greed must tell them to store it securely, without thinking about how wide the world is and whether there will be enough space to keep it all. but they store it and accumulate it all until they forget to consider whether we are upholders of the sky and earth, immortal gods who know not death, or whether we are people whose end is in the graveyard just like everyone else. Or what kind of people are we? Because it casts a magic spell over them which closes their ears, their eyes, and their minds so tightly that they never get a chance to even glance at the faces of their bosses to see what kind of a secret this is that they have together. In addition, the nature of this greed leads them to display external characteristics which are not good to see. It makes no difference what the sex, nationality, race, color, or class of the person is, nor how much power and influence he has. What he displays are characteristics that nobody likes to see, for they fill people with loathing and repulsion. For in fact, this is likely to lead to nothing but the downfall and ruin of the world, because the fire of greed spreads to burn and engulf everything so that nobody will be able to find shelter to withstand it. For reasons which we already know and see, which are obvious in our sight and mind, reasons which are not at all secret or obscure, the Dhamma of the Lord Buddha should be accepted, affirmed, and promoted as the Svakata Dhamma, which has been so well and truly taught. Thus, in the example of greed, the Dhamma of the Lord teaches that it is a danger which disturbs the peace and happiness of people who live together socially. In saying that greed is a danger, the Lord did not mean that it should only apply at that time when he said it, for this Dhamma has been known in the world for a long time, together with this religion which has taught it to the world. The world should therefore know, or at least be able to assess, that greed has been a danger to the world for ages, just as it has been taught in the Dhamma which has also been with us for a long time. So people should be aware to some extent of its evil nature, even if only in brief flashes of inspiration, for this is enough to bring them calm and happiness for a short time, so that they are not always in blind darkness. This hazard, which is called greed, has never brought blessings and benefit to anyone at all anywhere, and even though the whole world may praise it and think that it is good, all the results which in fact come from it are not what people expect or imagine they will be. For those results are bound to follow this same course as they have since the remote past in a fixed manner, without any variation. So the wisest of people destroy the evil of greed and then live in happiness, which is so different from us ordinary people who lead each other to develop greed and make it thrive and increase its power until there is hardly any room left for it to increase further in the whole world. If greed were a physical thing, like objects and things everywhere, the world would surely be inundated by greed with nowhere left to put anything else, because people are making more of it in various ways all the time and using it openly until they forget themselves and lose all sense of shame in the face of their nature, which is that of a human being, and usually extolled as being a high state, inherently clever and instilled with moral behavior. Even if they were to search for wealth and get it, piled as high as a mountain under the influence of greed, which goes about leading them on and directing them to go after it in evil ways, such people would get no happiness for the rest of their lives, and they would die in vain, having wasted their lives looking after masses of suffering for which their greed led them to be energetic in accumulating it in large quantities, which is a sorry thing to happen. As for themselves, they feel no apprehension, but other people feel afraid for them, for this is not a thing about which people can afford to be careless or indifferent. For when the time comes for the fire to start burning and destroying, it will do so truly, without regard for status or rank, for every part of the world, both small and large, seems to be boiling and getting hotter and more disturbed every day. In fact, it seems to be accelerating because of greed, which is like an engine, a prime mover, that drives everything else which has got to follow and cannot resist or stand on its own. What else but greed has such regal power to make the world run around doing its bidding until nobody is ever his own master? Nothing else but lobha, greed, has been raised up so high and established as the great lord and master over the hearts of people at the present time. What we have here called Lord Lobha is the one that has greed for anything and everything at random, without selecting or choosing. All that is necessary is that there should be a liking for something for it to arise. Even the moon up in the sky has been laid claim to by people who were forced by greed to go up there and take it and stick a flag in it to indicate that they were the owners without feeling in the least afraid or ashamed that someone might laugh at them. In fact, it is sensual craving, Kilesas, that is not afraid and does not turn away from sensual things. Once it finds a liking for anything, it becomes so greedy for it that it cannot have enough of it, and even if it means facing death, it will put up with it right up to the end of life without giving up. Even though it has things which support it, piled up until the owner is inundated by them and the greed cannot be seen under them, it is still not afraid of the burden. Even if it meant that it would break its back carrying this load, it is not afraid and it never retracts. The words retract or enough are words which this type never utters, because its stomach is not made of skin and flesh such as people and animals have, but it is made of insatiable greed for which there is never enough. So the heart and greed can live and go about together and compete with others sufficiently well so that they can both reach wherever they are going, together, without being afraid of a burst stomach, a broken back, that the body may die, and that they may end in disgrace without having any virtue at all. Those necessities of life, whatever they may be, greed goes about acquiring and raking them in to fill up the heart. If the heart were like any other vessel, it would have burst and been thrown away as garbage long ago. But the heart is of an immaterial nature, Dhamma, which is tough and durable, for it has been able to stand up to birth and life in all forms for a long time. So it can stand up to these conditions well enough, and is not likely to be destroyed by all these baneful things which destroy everything else, and which are associated with the heart all the time. But even then, we are still not roused up enough to think more about the importance of the citta than about those things which destroy everything. Therefore, even though the heart is what brings us the greatest boons and benefits, it is generally forgotten, like something thrown away and left to go the way of nature, and there are few who give it the attention that they ought to. But those things which are enemies of the heart are generally exalted and praised by people of all classes, so day by day they become more skilled and penetrating, and they steadily drag the heart down and bruise it and debase it all the time. Never can the heart be free even for a few moments, such that it could know that now there is a chance for the heart to get a bit of peace and happiness and freedom from all those oppressive burdens, which is the way it should be, and is appropriate to the heart, which is the great one, and the paramount essence within each and every one of us throughout the world. But instead of being like that, the heart always has to accept and experience the results of one's actions and put up with the suffering. This is true even though one may have so much wealth that one can hardly find room to store it, wealth which one has sought for the purpose of ensuring one's physical and mental happiness. But there is no way for it to act as a balm to bring some happiness in the way one thinks it should, without any suffering, discontent, and trouble. So in the end, one never sees any hope of getting any freedom from it. The practices which the Todanga bhikkhus strive to develop in various ways are all for the sake of freedom and salvation, and these practices are such as we have depicted in this book. Apart from the purpose of overcoming the evil Kilesas, which makes it necessary for them to put up with suffering, hardship, and a strict discipline inherent in these practices, it is hard to see any other reason why they should do all this. What I have known and described here in this book are just those methods which are used by those bhikkhus who hope to slip quietly out of the snares of Mara which we have been discussing. They keep trying to force themselves onward with whatever mindfulness, strength, and ability each one of them has, by using their own individual methods of making progress, as we have already seen, and each of them tends to stress that method of development which suits him most.